because I struggled for a long time, just like a lot of people, with what makes you legitimate. And I always thought growing that group practice and having that office of bustling clinicians was success. And I realized really quickly as I got more experience in the field that that's not really what was in alignment with what was healthy for me professionally or personally. And I was definitely in a career that if I would have continued would have led to significant burnout.
Hi, I'm Kim Tolson and I'm the traveling therapist. It's my passion to teach therapists how to navigate online private practices and multiple income streams so they can travel the world. I'm a digital nomad with a virtual insurance-based private therapy practice and a multi-six-figure coaching business. I'm obsessed with entrepreneurship and developing tools that can help therapists live an adventurous lifestyle. In this podcast, I will discuss my journey as a digital nomad. I'll chat with other traveling therapists and help you navigate the complexities of running an online insurance-based practice. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Traveling Therapist. I'm joined today with Amber Priestley. I'm so excited to have her here. I was just talking to her before we started, and she's just like me. We have all these different interests and entrepreneurial type traits, and we're therapists. And it's just, I'm really excited to have you here today, Amber, and to learn more about you and how you're making all this work. So how did you go from just being like your typical therapist to a traveling therapist?
Well, I was in the big field of mental health agencies in the very beginning, and I spent more than 10 years in that more collegial space with lots of clinicians and lots of clients coming in and out. And then the pandemic hit and everything sort of went more teletherapy. And I have a spouse who is also kind of loving to travel. We have that wanderlust, and we travel really well together, and our family is kind of very adventurous. And so I said, well, that's it. I'm going to quit my job. I'm putting all in on being a therapist, because up to that point I had a side hustle, which was a private practice. And then I worked a full-time job. And so I was going, I hit the gas pedal on private practice. I said, I'm going to make this a virtual practice primarily. And I went out, I got some consultant contracts. I was full within a matter of weeks, and the practice just took off. It wasn't an issue at all. So it was definitely a time when doing that was favorable. I mean, there's been such a huge need for therapists and such a huge need for care. So all you need is the right support and tools. And once you have those answers, it's pretty easy to navigate going from being at an agency or, at an in-person practice to doing it more virtually.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Right. So when was that you did that? Was that like when COVID started, or was it before?
Yep.
Okay.
It was right when COVID started. So I launched that. I did that about 2 full years, almost 2.5 now. So yeah. And I had been doing both on this. I think I had my side hustle for about 6 years, where I just had a small, group of clients that I was seeing outside of my directorship. And I just, it was a lot. The pandemic took a lot from a lot of people, and was hard to be in that, continual struggle everybody was living every day. And I'm just like, there has to be a way to live more in alignment with my needs too.
Absolutely.
Being a helping professional, you also have to take care of yourself, because if you're not, doing that for yourself, it's hard to do your best work. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I always talk about like being like feeling just trapped in my little brick and mortar office and taking these like 8 weeks of vacation a year. And it was just like torture for me to have to be stuck like that. And, when I realized telehealth was a thing, it was like freedom,
I know, totally. And I did maintain an office space, and I still have a space, but I set it up in a co-working space. So I can migrate from having a set space, right? Or I can rent rooms, or I can do whatever I need. But then I have that business address too, that lots of virtual therapists struggle to have, but it's very, very inexpensive to obtain.
Wow. Yes. Oh, that's so smart. Yeah. Okay. So I have so many questions. I want to ask you all the things, but so what does your traveling life look like now? Because before we hit record, you were sharing that you've got 4 children, and all these side hustle type things going on. So what does your traveling life look like? Like, how are you making that work as a therapist and a mom and all of that?
Right. Well, it starts with having my schedule my way, right? So I really
Yes.
went all in on this idea of, I do want to design a practice and a lifestyle that is congruent for me. So I make sure that I limit clinical work to certain days of the week so
Mm-hmm.
that basically I'm free to roam from basically Thursday to Sunday every week. So a lot of our traveling schedule is based on we'll go like one week a month from Thursday to Sunday. We'll travel to a new destination to explore something or to stay in a new place. And we'll do that as a family. And then my husband and I also do that in a large part with each other. So we look
Nice.
for budget vacations. It's very much, what do you want to call it, like a spontaneous event. It's like we're texting each other about flight deals and we're part of all those clubs and we're like, "Oh, wait, there's a flight here for $60 and you want to go?" Cuz I mean, when you're taking a family of 5 or so
Oh
with
my
you, those are
gosh.
great deals, you're like, "I'm jumping on that train." And so we probably travel, I would say, a longer stint once every 3 months or so. And then, we're taking a, at least a half a week a month and doing some kind of tripping or visiting of some place. But also our kids keep us traveling because we have a daughter in softball. So she's going to
Oh
tournaments and
yeah.
clinics across the US. She's preparing for her softball career in college. And so
Wow.
that has us visiting places. And then I also happen to have an affinity for aerial competitions. And so I compete in
Oh,
aerial arts. And so I travel around the United States doing that too. So,
what is that? What are aerial arts?
um,
Like flying competitions? Or
like think about Cirque du Soleil type
oh,
thing.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
God. That's so
there's
cool.
the whole entire umbrella of aerial arts. And so I do compete in aerial arts, but yeah. And so I travel around doing that and I'm going to Chicago. My most upcoming is in Chicago and then might go to the Carolinas later in the year. And then in the fall, I have a competition here in the Midwest. So just
Oh
very, very
my gosh.
busy.
That is so cool. Now, before we hit record, we were also talking about this entrepreneurial side of you. And we were, discussing, I bring this up in a lot of these podcasts, just like it's hard to manage it all because you and I, it sounds like we both have just like all kinds of ideas all the time, all the things we want to do in addition to the things we're already doing. So I was wondering, do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like kind of what you
Sure.
got your hands in with some other stuff and like how you're managing like the traveling, the kids, the aerial art stuff and these side hustle
Mm.
things.
Yes. Well, it starts with having my own business coaches and consultants. So
Yes.
I do make sure that I invest in that because they're very helpful to me. As a therapist, I very much value that personal growth and development. And I find that that's such a worthwhile investment for me. So I have people that help keep me on track, but I also have a wonderful team that I outsource to. So I
Yes.
have virtual assistants, I have people that I've worked with on gig platforms that do graphic design or website development or whatever the task is that I need. I've developed this team of specialists that I can go
Wow.
to get these things done. And so that is how I spend time in business, making sure that I have time for clients and such. So I have people who, I outsource all my bookkeeping to, or I outsource all of my, standard updates to certain practice
Yeah.
policies or anything
Mm.
that you need to be completing. So I
Mhm.
try to really lean into where should my time be spent and where am I finding the most joy. And
Yeah.
these days I find that's in two places, and that's
Okay.
usually that's usually coaching and consulting with other therapists on practice management, improving their practice operations and workflows. And so I've been doing a lot of one-to-one consulting around that, and then providing more access this time and space for all of those new practitioners that came into the space and started virtual practices.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do you become successful and manage getting everything done and have somebody to walk alongside you or share with you, the tips and tricks,
Yeah.
because we all spend a lot of time, and that's definitely how I connected with you. I'm like, wow, she's online, she's doing stuff in a similar space, so let me
Yeah.
just send a message and see what comes of it. Let's connect on some of these platforms that we now are so grateful to have readily available, that would just were not a thing a few years ago.
Yes.
So
Yes.
and then
Absolutely.
yeah, and then do spend a little time still in clinical practice, but couples is my absolute specialty. So I
Okay.
just
Hmm.
love the couples. So doing lots of workshops and offering that at a larger scale is also something that's important to me in the near future, so that I can continue with, again, we spoke about the entrepreneurial aspect of
Right.
making sure we're living in our business and growing it the way we'd like to see it grow, and making sure that we're reassessing that frequently and really
Yes.
being honest with ourselves about the kind of lifestyle we want to live and how we can make our practice work for us, because I've
Mhm.
determined that practices look so different depending on the provider and depending on their wants and needs, and that's one of the greatest benefits of being in our space is we
Yeah.
our brand is our personality and who we are as a therapist. So I think that
Mhm.
that's really cool and really unique, and it's helpful to watch people as they develop that and grow and help others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it sounds like we both come to that realization a little bit around like you want to continue to help people, but you also need time and space for you to live your life. So, as you're talking about like workshops and knowing you can help that population, but developing like a way to scale up so you can help more people and not have to be locked into that one-to-one model that's so like constraining.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And so I think it's often, a misconception that we just, that one-to-one model, the only way to get bigger is to just add on therapists or grow. But I feel under the group practice model, like several people are coming to me now and saying, I can't hire anyone. Like no one
Yeah.
wants to work. Like I
Yeah.
honestly can't meet these needs. So we've had to, as therapists, think about what are other ways that we can impact and provide those services, and how can we make our impact reach more people but not take up more of our time. And
Exactly.
workshops and groups and doing those larger offerings to bigger groups of individuals can really help us at least meet a need while they're on the wait list for that next therapist that they're hoping to see.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. So, in your group practice, like these workshops are just like a placeholder in a way to keep them working on stuff, but then be able to once they can get in and see the therapist. So it's like another way to help them, but also maybe another income source for you and a way to keep them engaged with your practice and your therapist and not have them go off somewhere else to find somebody. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's
Okay.
correct, but it's also, a way of providing a platform for your practice and your branding, because people start to
Nice.
know, I took this workshop, it was super helpful, it was really convenient, and maybe you should try it out, and such practice offers it. And so that has been also a really good thing. People just come and say, "Hey, I heard that." And then
Nice.
that's, also a way of, kind of engaging with the community more on a larger scale.
Wow. That's so cool. Yeah. And then you also offer coaching to other therapists that are trying to set this similar things up, or not even similar, but just trying to help them find what their thing is that they want to do so they can serve more people and have more time.
Absolutely. And I do that through a variety of ways. I do like one-to-one business strategy sessions where
Hmm.
we get on calls for an hour at a time. You can purchase packages of them or just do one. It's all up to what you need. But we come up with an actual plan, a 30-day action plan, and I'll help you get some results, figure out what
Wow.
you need to do, get some clarity around those action steps, and actually take those steps, and I'll follow up with you and see how it goes, because a lot of times we're just missing some accountability and missing some support, and that really
Absolutely.
fulfills that need. But I'm also really close, probably this summer, to launching a larger group program called Therapist to Entrepreneur. So it's going to be a
Oh,
6 week, yeah, 6 weeks coaching program where we're going to kind of make it a more affordable option for therapists to get more direct education on how to be a practice owner. Like we work through mindset, workflows, developing, good policies and review practices, and how do you set schedules that work for you, how do you expand and grow your practice past one-to-one clients, all of those things how do you outsource, how do you find
Yeah.
somebody, if you
Yeah.
want somebody to take your phone calls for your practice, how do you start, what do you do, if you want a better system of, I want my clients to schedule online, I can't return 20 phone calls a day, let's create an automated flow that points your clients to your website, gets them to schedule on their own. Like, that's all 100% possible. And if you're
Yes.
struggling, like, let's say your clients aren't showing up reliably, or you have an issue with your, attendance rates, like, let's dig into why. Or if you're not getting the clients that you'd like through your profile listings, let's look at that language. Let's see what we can do about it. Let's
Mm.
work together on how can we really make this better for you. I'm very big on connection and relationship, because I believe that so much growth and change comes from that.
Wow, absolutely. Oh, it's so important. Yeah, and as you're talking, I'm thinking like how important all this is, the automation and the good people working for you, and that you can trust and rely on, and it all comes together to help you live that authentic life, and be a traveling therapist if you want to be, just go do and
Yeah.
see these places. So you're not like, we were talking about this before too. I'm sitting in the library in the middle of Florida. It's a beautiful beach day, but trying to figure out ways to make more time for that stuff and less time for having to just always be working. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And that's definitely my 3-year goal, is to be able to travel for longer periods. I want to extend it to being able to be gone, a week or more without having to interact. Like, I'm working on what processes and workflows need to be possible for my business in order
Mhm.
to make that happen, because my spouse and I really want to start, RVing or road tripping around for larger periods. And in order
Yes.
to make that possible, I have a little bit of work to do. So I've only
Yeah.
gotten myself to about a 4-day, sprint of time, where I can be gone, but I want to expand that to, full 7-day period, and then see where it takes me from there.
Such a good goal. Yes. Oh my gosh, I love it. So just like shifting away from that to the traveling stuff again. So you did mention before we hit record about this, like maybe a schoolie or something like an RV remodeling. So is that like a definite thing you guys want to do, or like have you put some research into that? I'm just curious about.
Yes, we daydream about it
Okay.
regularly.
Okay.
We currently do have an RV, but it's at a parked campground, so we don't
Oh,
have
okay.
like one that we plan to journey around with. But after this year concludes and we're done with our contract where our current RV is, we're considering upgrading that process and either renovating a schoolie or buying a different RV, and starting to, when I get to those 7-day sprints, taking long road trips and kind of going through the whole 50 state, kind of map, and work our way through until we can't get to our landlocked states anymore, and then take
Yeah.
take our trip in the plane to the outstanding couple that remain. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that is the plan. Yes.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
exciting. Yes. Oh my gosh. So when you're doing that, you plan on seeing clients and just still doing your jobs and
Mhm.
just being full time like that. Oh my gosh, that's exciting.
Yes. Yes, like that. I don't know if you've ever seen those like Starlink satellites or that
Yes.
whole thing. Like, we've already been looking into what would we need to have to make sure things would be the most reliable, and how do
Yes.
we get that experience, because it's still important to me that even if I'm a traveling therapist, that I have the most access to internet possible, so that I have the
Yeah.
most flexibility at any given point in time.
Hmm. Hmm. So have you come up with a solution like with all your research? Because this is like an ongoing struggle for me. Like I said, I'm sitting in a library right now because the Airbnb I'm at has terrible Wi-Fi. And of course, the Airbnb guy is like, it's excellent Wi-Fi. I don't know what you're talking about. So I did a speed test and showed him. He's like, that's never happened before. I'm like, okay. Well, it's happening right now, and I'm gonna have to go to a library and do my meetings. But like, so have you
Right.
found like a reliable answer for that in your research, or?
I haven't up to this point in time, because
Okay.
just like if you take for example, if you get one of those hotspot devices or whatever, you're still subject to cell phone towers. And
Yes.
so that's how we kind of ended up with the whole Starlink idea. We're like, well, what if we
Yeah.
bought one of these? So we're actually seriously considering doing that just to test it out and
Wow.
see. like up
Wow.
because where our current RV is, we don't have internet service unless I walk.
Oh,
I have to go like you to a like a little building on the premises where they have Wi-Fi access, and I don't want to do that. I want to sit in my
no,
RV and be on the internet. So we're seriously
totally.
considering, just buying one to test it out there, see if it works well, and then take it with us when we start that whole process of traveling.
Oh my gosh. I hope you'll let me know how that goes. I really want to know.
I'll keep you updated.
Yeah, because this is like the internet is like the bane of my existence, like reliable Wi-Fi, I swear. Because people I interview, they're all like, okay, you should have at least two, you should at least have one and then a backup always, And I went to Costa Rica a couple weeks ago and neither worked. My first one or my backup. So I'm like, okay, well now I'm in Costa Rica. I have no cell reception. Anyway, needless to say, or Wi-Fi. So needless to say, it's it's a struggle. So I'm gonna have to figure something out. I'm
Well,
waiting
and
for the one podcast person that says, it works every single time. This.
right. Yeah, I know the best tip that I did get on your platform, though, because I'm part of the Traveling Therapist Facebook group and I'm
Yes.
frequently in there, like seeing what everybody else is doing and reading up on
Yeah.
what's going on. And the Crisp app is amazing. So that I
I've
have taken and used, and I use it now as a daily thing.
Yes, yes. If anybody doesn't know what that is, it's basically this filter you turn on. I've got it on right now. You turn on to your computer and it blocks out all the background noise. You can just hear yourself and the person you're talking to, and the person cannot hear anything. I was living in a building with ongoing construction, like jackhammering concrete. It was so loud, and I would turn on the Crisp app, and the client could not hear it. It's amazing. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I was on a client call the other day, and we had some emergency alert system go off nearby, and the Crisp app was on, and it was super loud for me the entire time, but they could only hear it when it came around and was like legit blaring really loudly.
Wow.
So it did a pretty good job. I would say it blocked 90% of it. So I give it a thumbs up for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh my gosh. And it's KRISP, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's how it's spelled. Just if anybody wants to go look that up. And I did check, it doesn't record or like keep track of anything you're talking about. So it's fine for HIPAA compliance and all that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm. Nice. Okay. I'm trying to think what else to ask you about. Let's see. So do you guys have like a favorite type of travel right now? Is it like the RVing or the camping, or do you just like it all?
We love all types of travel, but our favorite thing to do is kind of play airline lottery and just find cheap flights and just go on a whim. So it's frequent that every month we pick something from a Thursday to a Sunday and we book it and we just go.
Oh my
And
gosh. I
so
love
this
that.
month this month it's Kansas. Next month it's Chicago. We're gonna go to Chicago. So there's,
Wow.
we don't plan too heavily into the future, except to know that we're going to be in Florida sometime in the summer and that we're going to be going international sometime in the fall. And so we kind of have these placeholders per se, but
Yeah.
like I've gotten to the point now where I travel frequently enough that I don't plan ahead. It used to be something where
Hmm.
every time I went, I wanted to know every single thing about where I was going, how I was going to get places, what I was going to do, what was around me. And now I just show up and I just enjoy it and I live it.
It's awesome.
And it's a great, I don't know, it feels very liberating and it feels very fun.
I love that. Oh my gosh. So how does flying roulette work? Do you just go to one of your favorite like travel zoo or something and just pick
Yeah,
something, or how do you do it?
usually it's like one of those budget airline or budget apps like Airfare Watchdog, or we have a lot of flight, miles, credit cards and stuff that we use to kind of get miles so that we can get free flights places or discounted travel. So basically if my spouse or I see deals coming through on email, we're immediately texting each other, how about this? These are the times that we leave. This is what it's going to cost in our miles or stuff. You in, yes or no? And then it's back and forth. And then the Airbnb gets booked. And then a week later we're off. So
Oh my gosh.
it's kind of what it looks
Oh,
like.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so
Yeah.
fun. Oh my gosh. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let me see if there's anything else. I always have so many questions. I try to keep these like, 20, 30 minutes, but let's see. I That's good. Is there anything else about traveling like that you've noticed? Like anything you would want to share with the audience that they should know about traveling if they're afraid to do it, if they, don't want to take that leap to go and become a traveling therapist? Is there anything you could share about that like your journey that you've learned? I mean, you kind of just did about that, like just do it, live it. But I'm just
Well,
curious.
right. Yes. And here's what I have to say, because I struggled for a long time, just like a lot of people, with what makes you legitimate. And I always thought, growing that group practice and having that office of
Mm,
bustling clinicians was success. And I realized really quickly as I got more experience in the field that that's not really what was in alignment with what was healthy for me
mm,
professionally or personally. And, I was definitely in a career that if I would have continued would have led to significant burnout. And I knew that I needed to make a change. And so I had to get real with myself about that. But I still had to do a lot of mindset work and have a lot of patience with myself until I was ready to take the leap, because it wasn't an overnight process. It definitely, if I were to look at myself now and ask me 5 years ago if they would have thought this would have happened, the answer would be a resolute no.
mm.
Like I
Wow.
was a completely different individual. It just seems like living in alignment with who I am as a therapist and as a professional has really provided so much more happiness and joy. And then I'm able to radiate that out and share that with other people. And then I found that motivates others into positive action and change. And so it just pays forward in such a bigger way.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing
Mhm.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to work with you, how would they get a hold of you? The clinician wants to work with you.
Sure, sure. If somebody wants to work with me, I have a website. It's
Okay.
www.savvytherapist.com. And there you can view the packages or reach out if you want to schedule a business strategy session or get some coaching. I also have a free Facebook group, so you can join that. And in there, I share training. Sometimes we do reviews of people's websites.
Oh,
We
good.
tweak Psychology Today profiles. We do mini trainings, or I help people along. Like I create a series of topics over the course of a month, and we work to like spring clean your practice right now, because we're in spring. And so
Nice.
we're cleaning that up. And then, we're systemizing so that we can enjoy our summer. And so we have some themes in there, and we kind of work and support each other with practice needs there as well. So you can also email me at amber@savvytherapist.com or connect
Okay.
on LinkedIn. I love to connect with people and sometimes just schedule coffee dates just to get to know other
Yeah.
clinicians and other people and make those connections.
Awesome. Yeah. And what's the name of your Facebook group? I don't know if we said that.
It is the Savvy Therapist.
Okay. The Savvy Therapist. And the website is thesavvytherapist.com, right?
It's www.savvytherapist.com.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much. It was
Yeah,
such a pleasure talking to you today.
it was great talking to you too, Kim.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Traveling Therapist podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to thetravelingtherapist.com, where you'll be able to learn more about my journey, the courses I've created for you, and other exciting resources to make your dreams become a reality. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your traveling therapist friends, subscribe to the podcast, and if you love this episode, please leave a review.